to the People's Court. I'm Chris, joined today by Adam. David Blatt recently said that he thinks championship expectations for his Cleveland Cavaliers are unfair. Here's the entire quote. Anybody talking about us winning it all, I think they're being unfair to those great NBA teams that have either won it or have been there to win it, and also to us as a team that's talented but new. Adam, your thoughts on this here, David Blatt thinking that championship expectations for his squad are unfair?
It's ridiculous. It's patently ridiculous. I think there are two pieces to that quote. The first piece is a new coach coming into the NBA and giving due respect where it is due, giving respect to the San Antonio Spurs, giving respect to the Miami Heat, champions of the past, titans of past seasons who have battled it out. No problem with that. No problem with humility, whether it's false or not. That's not the part that I have a problem with. The part that I have a problem with is when he says it's unfair to us as a new team. Now, I've been following Blatt since before he was the Cavs coach. I've been following him since he was the coach of the Russia team that took the bronze medal in the Olympics, the most recent Summer Olympics. He is a fascinating person, a top-notch basketball mind. He's won in every location that he has coached in, whether it was in Israel, whether it was in Europe, or whether it was in Russia. He's a winner who knows how to coach basketball. So it's very difficult for me to take him at face value and not see part of this quote as mind games. But nonetheless, to say that it's unfair to have championship expectations with LeBron James on your team is just flat out ridiculous. When you have LeBron James and Kevin Love, two of the top 7 players in the NBA, there are immediately going to be championship expectations. Add to that Kyrie Irving and Dion Waiters, Tristan Thompson, Mike Miller. You've got a lot of explosive talent on that team, and you've got a culture, for better or for worse, whether you like it or not, in the NBA where winning is a must. There are very few teams in the NBA who allow cultures and coaches to develop very quickly. Mark Jackson got fired last year after a 55-win season in the Western Conference. Are you kidding me? And Lionel Hollins got fired after a trip to the playoffs with the Grizzlies. So we're in a culture of win or go home. Now, the other thing that bothers me is that he's in the Eastern Conference. He's not even in the Western Conference. He's in the soft conference with apparently no challengers to him whatsoever. Derrick Rose has still got soft ankles, and I should know. He's on my fantasy team. Paul George is out. The Pacers lost Paul George and Lance Stevenson, so they're basically a toothless dog at this point. The Miami Heat have an aging Dwayne Wade and a reinvigorated Chris Bosh, but their bench is pretty thin, and we haven't even seen Josh McRoberts play for more than 11 minutes. So outside of the Washington Wizards at this point, and maybe the Chicago Bulls if they can stay healthy, who in the Eastern Conference is going to challenge them? So basically the Cavs, as far as I can tell, have a newly minted ticket to at least the Eastern Conference Finals, if not the NBA Finals. They've got the best player on the planet in LeBron James, who is, as we know, is an athletic freak. He doesn't miss games. He doesn't get injured. And he's got the leadership capability and the experience to really bring a lot to this team. So all things considered, for Blatt to say that it's unfair for them to have championship expectations at this point either says to me one of two things. One, he really didn't know the kind of culture he was getting into, and I don't believe that about David Blatt. I don't believe that about a peripatetic coach who would know exactly the kind of situation he was getting into, whether or not LeBron was coming, whether he knew LeBron was coming or not, or he's really playing some sort of game, and he's trying to push back against the expectations he sees building to give himself some time and space. Now, there's a third option here, which I find somewhat intriguing given the Cavs' 1-3 start in the last 4 games. And the third option may well be that he saw his team was not gelling the way that he thought it was going to, and he was reacting to that before the rest of us saw what was actually happening. But basically, he's not seeing the Cavs that we all expect to see, that he's saying that it's going to take a lot more time, and then maybe it might not happen at all. Like, I don't want to go all Bill Simmons here and say that LeBron James is going to be Albert Pujols, but there are certainly questions in my mind about whether Kyrie Irving is happy to have Kevin Love and LeBron James on his team. This isn't a super team like LeBron and Dwayne and Chris Bosh formed when they got together 5 years ago, when they all agreed to come together and cut their salaries. Kyrie didn't have a say in this. He's just the recipient of the best player in the league falling in his lap, and it'll be really.
I'm sure he had some input. I'm sure LeBron wouldn't have gone if he hadn't have spoken with Kyrie beforehand. But there is a big difference, like you said, between that Miami team that formed a few years ago and this current team, in that Dwayne Wade had already won a championship, and Chris Paul had been to the playoffs. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love have never been to the playoffs. The first game of the season, he says to his guys on the bench, is this what a playoff game feels like? This playoff atmosphere. And I think it's a little smart of Blatt to come out and say this, for the entire organization to take things slow, because we saw what happened when LeBron and Dwayne Wade and those guys set the bar extremely high before they even set foot on a basketball court. They had 5, 6, 7, however many championships they felt that they could win, and you can't say that their 4-year run was anything but a success, but it fell short of their original goal. So I don't have much of a problem with Blatt saying, hey, wait a minute, we are new. Now, obviously, it's unrealistic for him to think that there won't be championship expectations. Anytime you put a team together that features 3 all-stars like this, that has the talent to win a championship, the media, other players, they're going to, internally, I bet you they're saying to themselves, we should be good enough to win a championship. But towards the public, their outward messages, hang on a second here, let us take some time to figure this thing out. And like you said, they got off to a slow start. I think it's smart to temper expectations at the beginning.
No, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, but what Blatt said wasn't tempering expectations. If Blatt had said, it's going to take us some time to get this together, that would be one thing. But what he said is that it's unfair for them to have expectations. As far as I'm concerned, that's a bunch of whining. And Blatt doesn't strike me as a whiner. If you've got the best player on the planet and 2 of the top 7 players in the NBA, I don't care what you think is fair anymore. You put yourself in a position where you have more I'd never heard Eric Spoelstra once say that any of the expectations that came on the Heat was unfair. He never said that. He never complained about having championship expectations. But that's how Blatt is coming off. Oh, it's unfair that people expect us to go to the championship because we have 2 of the best players in the NBA. Come on, it's not unfair. You've got the talent. Now let's see what you can do with it. Because in my opinion, tempering expectations, absolutely necessary. There's no question about that. Hey, give us 15 games to determine what kind of team we have here. Not, it's unfair. It's unfair. No, you've got LeBron James. You've got the best player on the planet. They made it to the finals with Mo Williams as his best sidekick. I mean, you've got Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving now. Of course you've got championship expectations. That's a blessing. It's not a curse. Championship expectations should not be whined about. They should be embraced and say, hey, you know what? We do have a high bar. We're going to meet that bar. It may not be in the first 20 games, but we will be there at the end of the season.
Well, that's a good question. Then you talked about at the beginning possible challengers to them in the East, kind of by the wayside here. But can they beat anybody in the West realistically?
I don't think they can beat the Golden State Warriors the way they've been playing their first 5 games. Can they beat anybody in the West? Definitely. I think they can beat the Pelicans and the Hornets. Yeah.
The Pelicans have a realistic chance of making the finals. Let's talk about the Warriors, the Clippers, Knicks, the Rock. I mean, can he beat any of these teams in a 7-game series?
And the creme de la creme, not as they are currently situated, not as they are currently put together. They don't have the chemistry. They don't have the know-how to do it. And I'm not sure Blatt knows what to do. Blatt's got to fill out his team. It's not that he's not a good coach, but he, in my opinion, he's the kind of coach that is going to take a while to look good because he's not coming in with a system. He's not a Mike D'Antoni that has a system and is going to force whatever team he has into that system. He's going to look at what he's got and he's going to build that system around his team, which is a good idea, but it takes longer to put together. So as they are currently composed right now, the Cavs cannot beat the top 5 teams in the West. They can't beat Golden State. They can't beat the Clippers. They can't beat San Antonio, and they're not going to beat Houston either. All of those teams come with some wicked 1-2 punches that the Cavs they can't. Well, they might be able to outscore them offensively, but they cannot stop them defensively. They're soft in the middle. They have no strong center. So going up against the Houston Rockets, as the Rockets showed against Miami 2 nights ago, You got to pick your poison. Do you let Dwight beat you up in the paint, or do you let James Harden eat you alive from 3-point land? The Cavs defense is going to be a huge question going forward. And the old adage in basketball is that offense wins games, but defense wins championships. And the Cavs are a huge question mark on defense right now. Both Kyrie and Kevin Love have been, masters of the Matador defense for a long time. LeBron is a great defender. He's even been in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. But they have to be lockdown defenders in order to even get to the finals, much less beat one of those top 5 teams in the West.
Other teams have shown, other coaches like Doc Rivers and Tom Thibodeau have shown you don't have to have 5 lockdown defenders to become a good defensive team. You just have to have good principles and one really good defensive player, which the Cavaliers have. Like you said, they have LeBron James. I think it's a matter of it's really going to come down to a matter of 2 things: coaching and chemistry. And if they can get those 2 things sorted out by the end of the season, they're going to be right there. The Bulls are the only that have a chance, I think, of beating them in the East, and that's with the healthy Derrick Rose, which is always a huge question mark.